is not very ready to face off with the criminals. What else can we do to redeem our environment? That is on our table today. Also, we will delve into the matter of the OSP and SML GRA contracts. The SML is hit back. They say that they had no connection with Colonel Furiata. That appeared to be one of the issues. Also, they have denied, or they have asserted the independence of their founder, saying that he's an independent businessman, he has no connection with anybody, and so nobody could link him to anything. They have also written to the president telling their side of the story, because it is their view that their story hasn't been told well enough. They were focusing on going to court to deal with the matters in court. But according to them, it does appear that the Office of the Special Prosecutor is making it a media war, and keeping quiet will be to their disadvantage. So their lawyer addressed the press yesterday to lay out the issues from their viewpoint. We'll look at some of them as well, some of the points they raised in that press conference today. We will try and see if we can touch on the vetting of the Chief Justice. Minority is asking that Parliament halts that process until all matters regarding the former Chief Justice Tokonu are resolved. Speaker says no, the vetting must continue. And so Monday, Chief Justice acting Bafuboni will be before the vetting committee, appointments committee of Parliament for the vetting. Will the minority take part? Will they walk out? What will they do? We will look at some of them. We hope to make some time for that. This is the big issue. We'll take a short break, return, provide some updates, and hit the ground with the discussion. My name is Selam Adonu once again. You're welcome to the program. Come back. This is the big issue. We are live on 97.3 City FM. Two key issues we have on our plate this morning. First, we'll deal with the issue of Galamsey. There was an attack on NIMOS officials in a town called Hwidiem. NIMOS officials were going about their duties, carrying out their work as we know it, and they were attacked as they tried to assert their authority and their duties in the area. They tried to make some arrests, and then the town people will not agree. Over 600 of them, at some point supposedly led by their MP, Member of Parliament for Isutufi South, besieged the police station and wanted the persons arrested released. It had to take the intervention of the Zongo chief and a few other people to restore calm. That MP has since been arraigned and granted bail. Speaker of Parliament says he will not shield any member of Parliament engaged in an illegality. This member of Parliament is an NDC member, and so that's a big bottleneck there for government. Let's see how government deals with this particular one. Also, the OSP SML GRA contract matter, SML has hit back. They've accused the OSP of bias, and they warn of a possible judgment debt. They have written to the president to reconsider his decision to terminate the contract. They say the contract is clean and the contract is a performing one, which in their view is doing well for the country. We will look at that as well. There is time we'll look at the Chief Justice, the vetting, and matters arising. But before that, let me provide you some updates. Now, the president of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Professor Eric Abavari, has called for the immediate resignation of the two members of parliament allegedly linked to illegal mining, popularly known as Galamsey. This call follows a violent attack on military personnel from the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat, NIMOS, by about 600 youth at Broni-Krom, Hwidiem. The youth were reportedly mobilized by the members of parliament for Isutufi North and South, Honorable Ebenezer Kwekuado and Honorable Collins Dauda. ChannelOne News' Ashanti Regional Correspondent Fatih Aminu Ibrahim reports.
The incident occurred on Saturday, November 1st at Broni-Krom, Hwidiem, after soldiers arrested two suspected illegal miners and seized vehicles and weapons during an operation by the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat. The arrest triggered chaos among some residents who confronted the task force, prompting police intervention. With the support of community leaders, the Hwidiem Police Command safely escorted the military team to Galamsey. Reports indicate that the youth were allegedly organized by Asutifi North MP, Honorable Ebenezer Kwekuado, under the directive of Asutifi South MP, Honorable Collins Dauda. Speaking to ChannelOne News, UTAG KNUST President Professor Eric Abavari said the alleged involvement of the two lawmakers has brought Parliament into disrepute, making their resignation imperative.
On the moral grounds and the shame they've brought to themselves, you see, you can't make the rules for people to obey and yet go behind the rules and breaking them. And no argument from their end can convince anyone. Therefore, you should give it the space and honorably resign, including his campaign boss, Collins Dauda.
He also urged the majority caucus to caution its members allegedly involved in the practice, describing their conduct as a national embarrassment that tarnishes Ghana's international image.
And so, whatever happened in the incident, and having those two big MPs involved vindicate our long-held suspicion. And so, for me, the people of Ghana now know that indeed our speculation is not actually a fluke, but indeed it holds water. Then the majority MPs who are there should take necessary steps, to correct this, because it doesn't know to anybody's benefit. And it's a disgrace even in the eyes of the international community.
Meanwhile, the MP for Asutifi North, Honorable Ebenezer Kwekuado, has denied the allegations, insisting he has been instrumental in restoring calm in the area.
All right, so that was a quick report there from our Ashanti regional correspondent, Fatih Aminu Ibrahim. Now let's get a discussion underway. Let me introduce my guests to you. Richard Ahiagba, MPP Communications Director; Hamza Suhini, member of the NDC Communications team; Richard Kumado, Security Consultant; Awula Sewa, Eco-Conscious Citizens of the Eco-Conscious Citizens; Professor Eric Abavari, President of KNUST UTAG; Dr. Osai Kwapon, is a research fellow with the CDD Ghana. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program. Let me start off with the security person. Richard Kumado, the security consultant. These are security matters. So I start off with you first. Good morning, welcome to the program. What's your general view about the happenings at Bronikrome Hwidiem in respect of the community attack on the NIMOS officials?
Okay, so for the past 5 years, we've done the nationwide risk assessment using Galamsey or inappropriate money as a case study. It is true that for the 5 years continuously, each year proves that inappropriate money or Galamsey poses a major national security threat to the state. I remember those days when we used to say these are mining terrorists or environmental terrorists, and we should not allow them to embolden themselves and occupy a lot of space. We were called all manner of names, and all manner of things were said. Today, we are paying the price. To the extent that it's a national threat or it poses a major threat to the state, every operation within the geographical zones where a typical inappropriate mining is done in a major aggressive manner, the operational teams are going to have some level of setbacks and difficulties. And these are the things we have seen. They will not just have difficulties, but the difficulties may come, some may come in the form that you find yourself in a hostile environment with the hostile personalities facing you. And in that regard, you are going to have an entanglement or entrapment. And if it narrates all the issues we have seen in this recent time, there has been issues of operational setback, there has been issues of entanglement, and there have been issues of entrapment, which is typical of what goes on within those zones where the NAMOS guys and all the agencies within the inappropriate mining fight find themselves. Salom is a simple thing. If you look at the motivation of the NAMOS people and the assignment given to them, you will realize that they are doing just as good as Operation Vanguard was doing. So my only hope and prayer is that they will keep the momentum and make sure they run to the end, and their side of the assignment will be completed. I also recommended or suggestively recommended that all the other agencies within the fight against Galamsey, by close of December, which I know they have been doing for some time, they will need to reassess the methodology and, review some of the operational strategies. And once they do that, it gives them an opportunity to have where the issues of the challenges, the major ones are coming from, and what difficulties they anticipated into the next year, and what level of resource mobilization they will need to put in. I also want to say that I have said that all the agencies will need to work together, and once they are working together, it makes it a bit more convergent for them that they are working with the local intelligence communities on the ground. These issues about entrapment and entanglement, yeah, they will be there, but they will be minimized. So this will be my general view of what has happened so far and some of the solutions I have prescribed to the frontliners in the fight against Galamsey.
Yes, the NIMOS, they may appear to be doing a good job, but how do we equip them to be able to withstand the resistance from the community people like we saw over the week?
So you see, there's a whole lot of misinformation and disinformation and miscommunication going on this whole fight against Galamsey. If you ask almost all the people who are speaking, ask them what is actually the role of NIMOS and how then do you measure their output or their input into the fight against Galamsey. There are other agencies involved who does some other stuff, like the EPA boss who went on exercise and the entrapment or the attack happened. When you take NIMOS, for instance, the issue NIMOS faced on that particular day, it wasn't because the whole NIMOS was attacked. It was a NIMOS boss who was patrolling with a limited number of people, and he got into an entanglement. What is the point I'm making here? NIMOS have a decision to take as to what operational strategy and methodology to use, how many people they should need to carry, based on the national risk assessment we have done. But then, are we saying that there's a militia out there that is more powerful than the combined forces of our Ghana armed forces? No. But then you have to manage the situation in such a way that, to the extent that this has become a national canker, you are managing it, you are assessing it, you are weighing it, and you are going through the processes in making sure that you clear as many areas as possible, bring them into the buffer zone or the safer zone. And this, I can say that NAMOS has done a good job in that regard. All other resources they will need, my understanding is that the budget that will be raised will give them some level of leverage. But recently I saw Gold Board giving them some resources to run. I am saying that, yeah, NAMOS may not have everything they needed, but they are doing the job. We need to praise them, just like we're praising Operation Vanguard, so that together they will get a job done. And that's the way we need to go. All those who want to interfere in the ways of NAMOS, we are telling them that you have to stop it, because this is a national exercise that requires everybody's input and that requires everybody's support. And I can say that my conversation with the leadership of NAMOS and the guys who play key role within the NAMOS environment, they are not despair and they are not weakening at all. They are going in there and getting the job done. Thank you.
Very well. Let me come to Richard in the studio here. We've seen this a few times, happening, but of course we'll get back to the issue itself. Richard, the issue about the attack on NIMOS and all that we've been doing in the fight against Galamsey, given where you sit, what else do you think we can do beyond the NIMOS and all of that, water guards, etc., to deal with the problem more decisively?
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers and listeners, I suppose, on radio. I am a bit subdued this morning listening and reading about events aimed at dealing with this Galamsey menace. Salom, it appears to me quite clearly that there's a pretense, if we should say it that way, to be fighting this whole thing. And this, I speak not as a political operative, but as a Ghanaian who is worried. We're at risk. If you look at the indications, the medical reports coming, the diagnoses that are coming, the diseases that are resulting in our country, which hitherto were not the case. And we're seeing the generation, people's health conditions. And even today, Salom, the communities that prior were somewhat supportive of government cause to fight Galamsey are now in support of Galamsey. So you see officials go to these areas and they are rather accosted without the support of the community. And when you listen to the account of the EPA boss, Professor Kluche, you hear that whilst they were there, the Galamsey sent word in around, and suddenly people started appearing from nowhere, and they felt threatened. The power of the state was under siege, that they had to retreat. This thing has taken on a different dimension, one that requires an apolitical approach. I'm looking forward to how the NDC will respond to this, but so far, so their narrative on this is defense, defense, defense. That will not suffice. To say that, yeah, the president, there's an ally in parliament seeking to repeal LI 2462. Earlier on, the tokenist approach of removing the president's power, and then now they're repealing the entire LI. And so that should suffice. And that they have trained some blue water guards, which was not necessary to begin, because the thing is happening in the full glare of community. So therefore, water guards were not going to be able to solve that problem to begin with. And so we have come to a place now. NIMOS has been put in place. NIMOS itself is under attack. Okay, attack not only from the MP situation that we've seen, but instances where NIMOS officials are ill-equipped. There is general conversation of their ability to deal with the task that is put before them. I hear Richard Kumado trying to be a little bit of an apologist for NIMOS and saying that people are saying they haven't been able to do much, and he doesn't think that they are the only people. But they are the arrowhead right now. Everything has been put aside. They are supposed to coordinate this project, and they need to be sufficiently resourced. Okay, so the totality.
You think they've not been sufficiently resourced in constraints of, resources we have? Haven't they been, adequately, sufficiently resourced?
Well, you can ask the question, Salom. If they are sufficiently resourced, the boss, okay, in seeking to stop the act for which they have been set up, okay, got attacked by a member of parliament from the NDC side, and that operation was thwarted. Okay, and so is that resource? The resource is not only logistical resource; it's also political resource. They don't have it. Okay,
but the MP, let's put on record, the MP has denied that he was involved. He said he was there to help restore calm.
Well,
that's his story.
That's a conversation in the court. But what we have seen is that he has obstructed the process, which his government, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, with all intent and purposes, appeared to be fighting. Okay, appears to be fighting. But that fight, Salom, is not going anywhere. Galamsey today, if you take away politics from it, Galamsey today is worse than it was when President Mahama came to office. There cannot be any denying of that. There cannot be any denying of that. People are emboldened. The question I want to ask, what makes these community people suddenly standing against the state? Now we understand that there are people from outside this country who are engaged in this Galamsey. They are brought in to provide cover for the operations. So I think that the president, and I believe in my heart of hearts that President Mahama wants to stop Galamsey. But the approach so far, even 9 months, I don't see it to be the solution we need. We need a more expansive approach. We need a whole village approach, Salom, to be able to deal with this, devoid of any measure of politics.
But is there politics in the current arrangement to fight? There's NIMOS, and NIMOS, I should understand, is a professional body with a military head, ahead of its head being a colonel that's leading the whole attack.
Yes.
Do you see politics in NIMOS?
The politics is all over the place. If you let my brother Hamza come and then ask him, he'll be defending. To be defending this. We have gotten to a point where there cannot be any defending of Galamsey in any shape or form. So that MP who has done that ought to expressly be sanctioned and punished expressly.
Yeah, but yes, let's go with that for
any individual.
The MP, we have seen the system react swiftly.
Yeah.
Speaker of Parliament condemned it, said he's not shielding anybody. That is one, which we have not seen in a long time. Good. Number two, hours after the event, IGP, empowers the CRD to take over investigations from there. Hours later, he's arraigned, he's taken to court, he's bailed. A lot of things have happened. He couldn't have been jailed immediately. That's not how the process works, unless he pleaded guilty. But once he pleaded not guilty, the process must continue. And the swiftness of the process should be commended, shouldn't we?
No.
What else would you expect?
There's some appreciation there.
What else do you expect?
But there's some appreciation there, but we need to go the full hog.
Like what?
The full hog. The bail condition given him, for me, it's paltry. Okay? It doesn't send a strong signal. Because what you're doing, you're fighting this with force on the ground and with leveraging the political optics as well. And so the punishment must appear commensurate with the crime and the urgency. I'm coming with the urgency with which we want to deal with the matter. So yes, he's an MP, the actions taken and the swiftness of it appreciated. But one additional step that needed to send a signal is say that we are not going to tolerate this. We put premium, on this offense such that we are not going to treat it with kids' gloves. So the bail condition given him must reflect. So you can say.
So wait, there's a bail conditions should not be a punishment. That's the law.
But it's been used under this government.
I'm getting to a point. The bail conditions are crafted, taking into consideration the nature of the offense. The offense he was charged with was assault on a public officer, unlawful damage, and rioting with weapons. All right. So these are the charges.
Rioting with weapons in what cause? In defense of what cause?
Yeah, so we don't know. But this
what the report we have is that it was an obstruction related to prevention.
This is legal. The point I'm making is that these offenses have punishments attached to them.
I agree, but
and
I'm just saying
you don't go beyond the punishment.
No problem.
So you may question the charges, but for now, this is what we have. Of course, the police may withdraw the charges in due course and then substitute them. But given the swiftness of it, you can understand why these charges will be brought.
It is this kinds of rationalization, and this is the law here on left and right. But that's
the law.
No, I'm not saying that it's not a law. I'm just saying that it is this kinds of rationalization that people find comfort to be able to carry on. And that's why we can win the fight. You have to get to a place where you understand that the urgency of the matter requires a certain approach commensurate to be able to deal with it.
So that approach must still be lawful.
It must be lawful. But then I was trying to make a point for you, which you moved away from. But the point is that this government has not necessarily been lawful when it came to the handing out of bails. If that is a singular matter we are discussing, then the government is guilty of not applying the law properly.
Government doesn't give bail terms.
I'm saying that,
or conditions.
but
the court.
But the apparatus of state.
That's different from government simplicity. Government,
but that's government. What is government?
In the context of this, government means the executive. In the context of our conversation.
Why are you deducing government
now?
You are redefining government. Just hold on. I am just saying that it is these fine languages that makes the whole fight difficult. You understand? So I'm saying, but who is the head of government?
We're educating people.
No, this is not a matter of education. I'm saying
it's a matter of education.
It is a matter of education because you want to locate the education.
But you see,
hold on.
It is my job.
It is our collective job.
Yeah, it's my job as well.
Okay,
given
so
the
just
fact
allow
that
me to make
I've done
my
a bit
point.
of the law.
No problem.
To be able to tell you what.
No problem.
What is what when it comes.
Government is not. Hold on.
When it comes to bail conditions.
Yes.
It is the state.
So are you happy?
But the judiciary.
Are you happy about a bail condition for an individual 800 million? Okay, and you don't see that to be a denial of bail. You don't see that.
No,
just a calculation to keep you in custody. You don't see that.
We have spoken about that. But
so I'm saying
what
that
was the offense
when
in
we
that
have forget about the offense.
The offense is important.
The offense
what was the offense in that case?
Look, the measurement of the offense and the handing of bail condition is actually at the discretion of the judge. Is that not the case?
But the discretion shouldn't be arbitrary. The discretion must also be rooted in law.
Okay, so here is the point I am making. Now you give 150,000 bail to an individual who is obstructing a fight that confronts our collective existence. You think that is not existent? It's not catastrophic enough that 150 you give him so that tomorrow he can go and commit the same thing? That he's free moving about. He can commit the same thing. The same conditions can prevent himself and he'll commit it. After all, what would happen? And I guarantee you, this is just optics. So look, talking about that MP, you know that there's an MP, an NDC MP, who is banished from his constituency for reasons that he's involved in Galamsey in our win. That's Oscar Labi, NDC MP. What has happened? What has happened? So the approach to the fight, Salom, is the government is blowing hot and cold. That is a wrong indication to give to people because it makes people feel that if we belong to one side, we have a pass. If you belong to the other side, that's where you are checked and checked heavily. Given 800 million bail, given 150 million bail, 10 million bail, and then if you belong to that side, they give you only 10 million. But what I believe is the course of action we must take. It's for the president. I'm coming. It's for the president to come to the table and declare a state of emergency.
So the state of emergency
that is not negotiable under these circumstances. It is the only singular way to hold things constant and then look at what are the options. If you don't hold things constant and things are this fluid and you are moving about trying to solve this, you'll be chasing your shadows.
Very well.
So the president must come to the table. Somehow, he's been made to come to the table relative to the complete repeal of 2462 LI. He's come to the table with that, okay? So he needs to graduate to the point where he must declare a state of emergency. Nothing else will suffice. The idea that some areas will be designated security zones, you can do that only when you have a state of emergency. Now you can't see clearly to be able to position yourself to identify those places.
But they have the security eye so they can see.
But I'm saying you can. But then the level of difficulty to do that in a space whilst everything is fluid is difficult and almost impossible. So what you need to help yourself, and I don't understand why you don't want to help yourself. Okay, because at this table, in order for you to move to Hamza, you have to have me stop talking. But if you want,
which is what I'm trying to do.
I'm coming to the point. But you cannot have the two of us talking.
Yes.
So you must come to a point where there is some agreement that I'll stop talking, and then Hamza comes. The president must understand that.
Very well.
The
So now, let's have that agreement that you stop
difficulty
talking.
not to declare state of emergency. I can't see it.
Very well, great. So we have that agreement now. Let Hamza Suhini, member of the NDC communications team, is join us. Let me speak to Awula Sewa of Echo Conscious Citizens. Good morning, ma'am. Welcome to the program. The events of this week, NIMOS attack, the attack or accident of the EPA team in the Boise area, etc., are signs we do not want to see. And even though people think that the government is putting in some effort in respect of the fight against Galamsey, it does appear that there is still a lot to do, and the people involved are becoming more emboldened to come against state actors. Where will you place that? Why is it so?
First of all, good morning to you and your viewers, and good morning to my colleagues in the studio. I've been listening to the discussions, very interesting. What I would say is that the situation is dire. I mean, what has happened? First of all, the attacks on the IGP, the attacks on NIMOS, and now on the EPA just shows that we are gradually slipping into more chaos and anarchy. A while back, civil society organizations warned about the national security threats. We warned that the environmental terrorists were emboldened, because let's call a spade a spade. The perception has always been that actors from both sides of the political divide have been involved. Whether you want to talk about, look at Professor Frimpong Boateng's report, why it sat on somebody's desk for so long before anything was done about it. And then now that this administration is there, now before there's prosecution against, for example, Chairman Wontumi. And then you look at the current administration, complaints have been made against party chairmen, against members of parliament, and not much has been done about it. So we are emboldening the environmental terrorists who feel that they have support from the perception that they feel they have support from within the administration. But let me be very clear about this. What action was taken after the IGP's men were attacked? What action was taken after NIMOS personnel were attacked? What action has been taken after the incident with the EPA that has landed persons in hospital, and our hearts go out to them? It must have been a very traumatic experience. What is happening? And then my mind goes to, I think a year or so ago in Ashaman, when I think an army officer's phone was stolen. Look at how the army descended on the place. What message are we sending to the thugs who took the action they took? The army had to retreat, but when you retreat, you go and regroup, and you need to go back and make it very clear that you cannot attack duty bearers and we're going to just fold our arms. My concern is that NIMOS is not adequately resourced, and that those who are going after the environmental terrorists are not adequately resourced. And if we don't correct this very, very quickly, I don't know what is going to happen to Ghana. We don't want Ghana to sink to the level of some Latin American countries where some areas are no-go areas. Even the military can't go there. We need to act now.
I see. Quite interesting. But what would you say about the NIMOS incident, how the state has reacted? You've seen Parliament react, we've seen the executive react, and now we've seen the judiciary react in respect of the same matter.
Well, first of all, I need to commend Erastus Asaredonko for breaking the story. We don't know what would have happened if he hadn't broken the story. For me, there was too much hesitation. In my opinion, there was too much hesitation. So we thank him for breaking the story. And then I remember civil society organizations, eco-conscious citizens, demanding that we do understand that we are innocent until proven guilty. But because of the nature of what had happened, the two NPs should have been suspended, so that you do not continue bringing Parliament into disrepute, especially that organizations, including eco-conscious citizens, have written to the Speaker of Parliament regarding the information we've had that some members of parliament are involved in illegal mining. Prompt action should have been taken. But be that as it may, better late than never, action has been taken. It's now in court, and we'll leave the court to do the work they are mandated to do.
I see. Let me speak to Hamza in studio. I'll come to Prof in a bit. Hamza, it does appear that the fight against Galamsey is slipping through the fingers. I mean, of your government. The government doesn't appear to be having a full handle over the matter. Now, criminals or illegal miners have the boldness to attack state security agencies or state actors. That should be very, concerning to government.
Good morning to you, and of course to my brother in the studio, and many of our colleagues who are joining us via Zoom, and our cherished viewers out there, as well as the production team. Salom, first of all, it is not accurate that this is the first time that communities, and for that matter, illegal miners have attempted attacking state institutions mandated with the responsibility of fighting the canker of illegal mining. Indeed, I think that if my memory serves me right, when the NPP pretended to be engaged in the fight against illegal mining, there were some few reports of incidents of that nature where the task force that was instituted by the president then had confrontations with communities as well as illegal miners. So this is not new. But the most important thing as far as the past and now is the demonstrable commitment on the part of this government in confronting the menace of illegal mining. And most importantly, the transparency that characterized that effort. And people are missing that point, because for the first time, there's every indication that this government is not engaged behind the scenes in ways that we all can consider untoward, especially when it comes to sending the appropriate signals of its unwillingness to shield even people that are suspected to be engaged in illegal mining and are associates of the government or the party. That indication has been made. And so I was disappointed and quite surprised on my way here when I heard my brother say that the government is only pretending to be engaged in the fight against illegal mining. How would you, Selom, describe what nearly happens to the EPA boss as a pretense? You think that this government would be irresponsible, and its appointees would be that irresponsible to send government officials on the ground only to engage in pretense that has serious repercussions for their own lives? Absolutely not. That should rather tell you the readiness of this government to go all the way, including duty bearers like appointees of His Excellency President Mahama, like the EPA boss, who are willing to sacrifice as far as our collective desire to end this canker is concerned. The lady, Prof, basically had to take cover with her directors because of threats to their life. That cannot be pretense. That tells you commitment on the part of government. And so it is not only disingenuous to refer to that fight as pretense, but also clearly intended to score cheap political points. And that is the problem with the entirety of the fight as far as the menace is concerned.
So let's deal with a short pretense. So for example, the MP for Awing, Oscar Labi,
yes,
they called him, was banished by the chiefs for, alleged illegal mining activities. Indeed, the chiefs alleged that, in their view, the MP's actions began around the 9th of December 2024 after the NDC won the elections. And a lot of things have been said, but we don't know clearly what government has done to that MP. While we commend government in the case of the CTV North and South matter, what has happened to the Awin MP's matter and the constituency executives who have been mentioned in illegal mining activities?
I think
so if we are clear on those, then we can be around the same table saying that government is not
There's
pretending.
clarity on it. Remember that when the incident happened, there was a directive that the CID should take over the investigations of that particular incident. And if we need clarity in terms of the progress of investigations, I think that the appropriate institution to deal with on this matter is the Inspector General of Police, and of course the CID department in particular. And I can assure you that, like we indicated, these were allegations made by chiefs that was referred to the CID. So we all must be interested in the outcome of those investigations. This is not the first time we are having to deal with the contents or timeliness of investigations. Remember that even in the not too distant past, the Attorney General also had cause to refer about 2 national executives of the ruling National Democratic Congress to the national, what's the name? Is it BNI now? For NIB for investigations as far as those allegations.
That's Yamin and Abanga.
Absolutely. That tells you that this is a government that is ready, even in the fight against illegal mining, to still remain committed to the fundamental laws of this country, even in our quest to end the canker.
But you see, Hamza, the difficulty is that people have become cynical, and sometimes you can understand.
They can be forgiven.
No, so sometimes something happens. It's easy to say, okay, CID, whatever, take over, investigate, and that becomes the end of it. So given the importance of this, wouldn't it have been proper for government to ensure that BNI or NIB and all those bodies investigating a matter around Yamin and Abanga, for example, where it's been months to tell us this is what we have found so far, this is where we are. We are continuing with investigations. The president was petitioned in January in the case of the Awoin MP. We are in November, and you say investigation is still ongoing.
Absolutely.
What of course, investigation can be laborious, but exactly. We need to hear something.
Exactly.
That will
the
help
investigations
the transparency.
Are not done.
Yes.
By the CID, I'm not sure that you hear anything. Remember that even when His Excellency President Mahama assumed office, he gave a directive to the CID to investigate the electoral violence that characterized the 2020 and 2024 elections. The outcome of the investigative report was made public just last week. But that directive was given immediately after the swearing in of His Excellency President Mahama. At a point, many of you forgot about even that directive. But it did not stop this government from making public the contents of the eventual investigative report.
Exactly the
I'll
point.
get there. But
this is in the center. In fact, if there should be a defining moment in president's tenure, apart from the economy,
where the president is equipped under the law and has the investigative report to signal that center, that commitment. He has done so in the case of the Suitifi North MP. He's made that point clear. It is because the investigative report is out on that matter. That is why the IGP and the CID have proceeded to raise a docket on the issue based on which we are now in court today. So let us be patient. This is not a president who will sweep things under the carpet. In the case of the Awin North MP, we are dealing with an issue, an allegation that was made by certain chiefs.
By no means people that the traditional.
It does not mean that the caliber of the person making the allegation, you know better.
No,
it does not mean that it's true. Exactly.
But it requires, it's a
that is the more
reason
reason why it requires serious investigation.
Yes, and
because you simply cannot come out. But that's the point I made. I'm telling you that even in relation to the deaths that occurred in 2020 and 2024, as far as the electoral process is concerned, it did not take 2-3 months for the investigative report to be out. Many of us forgot about that directive, but the report is out. So we are dealing with a very meticulous precedent. And the only caution I will throw out is that we must be patient and not root this fight in a way that makes it clearly impossible for us to still continue to be committed to our legal principles as far as the law is concerned. And for me, that is my worry. This is not a president who will sweep these investigations under the carpet if the investigations are made, are presented to him. But you see, Selon. So the pretense bit was disingenuous and calculated to score political points. That point needs to be made. Again, my brother attempted to raise the issue of bail and the fact that there seem to be variations when it comes to the NDC, members accused of engaging in the fight and that of the MPP. You know, as a matter of law, that in determining bail, the courts consider so many factors, and one of the factors they consider has to do with the nature of the crime. And to a very large extent, in terms of doling out bail conditions, another important factor is personalities involved in terms of privileges one may be entitled to. So if you look at the Wontumi case, and I think that my brother needs that education, we are dealing on one hand, in the case of Wontumi, of an issue that had to do with an allegation against him of actually engaging in illegal mining, using Akonta mining. And indeed, these allegations did not stem out of the NDC's tenure now, but also predates that tenure. Because remember that the minister responsible for lands and natural resources under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the Honorable John Abujinapo, had cause to issue a public statement condemning the activities of Akonta mining and Wontumi, and publicly declaring that they were engaged in acts of illegal mining. It took President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the MPP to forcefully defend the original chairman and Akonta mining. And President Nana Addo made an open declaration that indeed that company was not engaged in illegal mining and was mining legally at a time that his Minister for Lands and Natural Resources had directed further investigations into the conduct or into the activities of Akonta mining. So we are dealing with an individual who is actually engaged in the menace or alleged to be engaged in the menace. So when it comes to bail, the conditions would be substantially different from a sitting member of parliament who is alleged to have obstructed NIMOS. Remember, this is not a gentleman who is said to be engaged in illegal mining. He's only been charged for obstructing or attempting to obstruct the work of NIMOS. So you simply do not expect the bail conditions to be the same. Secondly, you are dealing with a sitting member of parliament. And any judge exercising the discretion to grant bail would consider the fact that the gentleman is a sitting member of parliament, and so the possibility of absconding might be minimal. And it will be easy to track such a person. In the case of Wontumi, Wontumi is not a sitting member of parliament entitled to certain privileges.
He's a chairman of
it doesn't matter. But under our laws, MPs are entitled to certain privileges, and it's enshrined in our laws. So any judge seated on the issue would regard him as an appointee of the state who is entitled to certain privileges.
Very well.
And so in determining bail and bail conditions, that would play an instrumental role. And that is the reason why, my brother, that the bail conditions for Wontumi would not be the same when it comes to the bail conditions for the Asutifi North MP. And that point needs to be made. So it has nothing to do with government interference as far as that matter is concerned. You see, Selim, I beg you, please.
Just wrapping up.
Yes, you gave him ample time. So permit me to respond.
Keeping time.
Yes, I was.
You're chipping away your time.
Yes, again, you see, and that point needs to be settled. But Selim, it is important that in this fight that we need to be guided. For many of us out there, especially the Ghanaian citizens out there who are not privileged with the opportunity of being part of the ruling class or constituting any of the four arms of government. And here, if I say four arms of government, I mean the executive, the judiciary, the legislature, and of course the media. Now, for many of our colleagues, our citizens who are out there, they can be forgiven to be emotionally driven or directed by the sensitivities of the fight against illegal mining. Because on a daily basis, we see the havoc it causes to not only our environment, but to the health of the Ghanaian people. So they can be forgiven to be demanding an end to the canker using emotions or making references to the sensationalism bit of the fight. But the likes of us, those mandated under the law to lead, we cannot truly end the canker if we root that fight on emotions and sensationalism. And that point needs to be made. And that brings me to the report. Because you see, we would only succeed with the fight if we are true, candid, and honest with ourselves. And try as much as possible to eschew the sensationalism bit of it as duty bearers and actually confront the issues as they should be confronted. And that brings me to the Erastus Danko report. Undoubtedly, he's one of the finest we have in the country. as far as the fight against illegal mining is concerned. And many of us have argued in the past, and I think I still stand by that there's the need for us to consider rewarding him for his dedicated service as far as this fight is concerned. But it does not also mean that sometimes he doesn't get it wrong. And for me, I was troubled when the entirety of our nation proceeded on the basis of a Facebook post he put out alleging that the MP obstructed NIMOS, and on the basis of which many of us, including many media practitioners, proceeded to call on His Excellency President Mahama and the government to met out functions to the said MP. But you know that even within your own journalistic ethics, the honorable thing he ought to have done was, after listening to the side of the NIMOS, because he claimed that he spoke to certain members within the NIMOS team, journalistic ethics required that he ought to have also entertained the possibility of speaking to the minority, to that said MP, which he didn't do, to get his side of events. That didn't happen. But because of the emotional attachment and sensationalism I cautioned against, as a republic, we all proceeded and jumped on the MP and concluded that he was guilty, even before investigations were commenced. So these activities obscures the need for a true understanding of the challenges we have as far as the fight is concerned, and makes it practically impossible for us to be able to deal with the nitty-gritties of the issues when it comes to the fight against illegal mining. And for me, it is troubling, and we must move away from that. But that notwithstanding, Salom, this government directed CID to do the investigations. They have done the investigations in less than 24 hours.
Yes.
The gentleman has been arraigned and granted bail. That never happened in the last 8 years of the MPP administration. That in itself demonstrates commitment on the part of the government as far as the fight is concerned. And that ought to be commended.
Let me test the claim of commitment with Prof.
But just under a minute.
Let me test you with Prof. Bavari, good morning, welcome to the program.
I'm not done responding.
I trust you are well, and so taking it from the point of commitment, I've seen a few of your posts. You know, there are times you're unhappy, there are times you feel, okay, we could do better, there are times you feel, okay, this has been rightly done, we need to encourage it, etc. So you've been commenting on things as and when they come. Do you think that this government is committed to winning this fight against Galamsey? And that's a direct question.
Thank you very much, and the viewers. Commitment, yes, they are committed when I compare them to that of the MPP. And I say this because of the responses or the overtures in an attempt to solving or fighting the Galamsey. At least if MPP had done same, maybe the narration would have been a bit different. Nevertheless, the magnitude of the commitment is not what we actually are having. Yes, so that I just want to put that in perspective. Yes, they are committed, but the extent of the commitment doesn't match or commensurate the rhetorics of the election time. You know, if you recall, around November last year, this time, the heat of the election mixed with the Galamsey talk and the energy with which our president, you know, was fronting to fighting it. If you match that with the current overtures of the commitment, then it is not the same.
So in your view, of course, the commitment is lukewarm.
I wouldn't say lukewarm, because they are a bit more transparent now, like Hamza was saying. But of course, which Hamza was saying, not all, the fact that they are transparent somehow, that's because the ultimate test is, Richard said the magnitude of distraction last year and now. I agree with him completely that the turbidity levels had not crossed 20,000 NTU. But now they have crossed. So you agree that clearly the mess is higher now compared to the previous. However, we must look at the fight as it is and ask a question. Do we really want to eradicate this Galamsey? If you look at the two political forces who have held or leading this country, the two of them are not totally committed in terms of wanting to eradicate this. They are not. Because if they are, I should be seeing and improve turbidity levels in the waters. It is not. So if you just oppose whether the president or this government is committed, yes, it's committed, but the result that we are seeing, does it commensurate and improve condition? No, it does not. Why? That's the question we should be asking. But it looks to me now that the situation we face, apart from the water being destroyed and the everything associated with Galamsey, the fight is taking a different dimension. And that dimension that if we don't quickly do anything about it, it's going to get out of hand. And it's going to be an entirely different thing. I will mention briefly about it, about gradually we going to go into the Southern America type of cartel that the Galamsey is going to offer or bring. Yes, and it's even be beyond that. It will be beyond that because, again, Richard alluded that I don't know whether Richard or Hamza, one of them alluded that we have foreign nationals in there, the Burkinabes, Ivorians, Nigerians, whatever. They are there. Where my fear now is going is this. We have these terrorist groups within the neighborhood, from the Tuareg, the ISIS, the Boko Haram, all these guys are lurking around. And they always work when they see a fertile ground. And now the Galamsey offers these fertile grounds for them to infiltrate. And if they do infiltrate, are we ready to handle it? This was the reason UTAG was fighting last year and continuously been fighting. Within ourselves, even without these mercenaries in there, have we been able to manage it? Now you bring the dimension of when these mercenaries become part, because they are being weaponized. They have weapons all over the place. And when this takes a different level, I'm afraid Ghana is not going to be the Ghana you know today. Salom, this issue you have, gold is not something renewable. Even if scientific process of getting gold, even if you say all things being equal, it is not going to happen overnight. So definitely this gold will get finished. And when it's finished and everything around it is also gone, that is, the water bodies are gone, our forest is gone, farmlands are gone, our cocoa, even beans, I'll come to the cocoa beans, are all gone. And the young people that are involved don't have anything doing there. They will come to the cities. They will come to Accra, Kumasi, everywhere they will come. Seldom they will know when you go to work, and they will know when you will return. And in between that period, you will not be there to manage or watch over your properties. These people have not been thinking about it. Even the politicians themselves, you have not thought about it. And so we shouldn't be trying to do blame game. I have done this, I have done that. I think we are at a point that if we don't, Hamza was saying emotion. Yes, I agree partially. But without emotion too, we will not be triggered wanting to do it. That depends so much on cocoa beans. Look at how much cocoa beans, cocoa trees we are destroying. People are exchanging their cocoa trees for instant, some quantity of money in exchange. The cocoa beans are being infected by these heavy metals. I can tell you on authority that Japanese people, they have now created a new form of cocoa. It is not the beans, but some kind of concentrate that will serve the same thing as the cocoa chocolate. And if they perfect it, they will not need your cocoa beans anymore. So it means that we don't have the cocoa beans to sell. We don't have your water bodies. You don't have your river, anything. So this issue, I want to appeal to the politicians in the studio that we must not do this blame game, because I'm surprised some of the things I'm hearing from Richard. Well, Richard wouldn't have said those things when he was in government last year, no. And Hamza was emboldened to say the same thing when he was in opposition. And so I would plead that we lost Major Maxo Mahama. Didn't do anything to us. We lost our fine gentlemen, the 8 officials. We thought this thing could have served as some kind of a bench, a pedestal for us to do something more. Now we saw what happened to Naibos. They could have also been lynched to death. And by the grace of God, they are surviving. Look at our EPA boss, Professor Nana. We just, again, lucky. How often are we going to be lucky? Do we have to go back again in country and mourn and talk again and come back to square one? The demand is simple. If you don't want to call it state of emergency, let's say we're banning temporarily where every place mining is being done, we want to ban it. With some cool-off period, maybe 3 weeks, 1 month, that will give us the chance to assess the enormity of the situation and how to improve our machinery to fighting it. But if you stand in the ants and start plucking the ant at the same time, we will not get anywhere. Again, remember, in the past, they were hiding. Nobody wanted to own up to be called a Galamsey. Now, they don't care of the cameras. They are willing to confront. They have been emboldened. The question is, who emboldened them? If they have been emboldened, it tells you there's some power behind somewhere that is giving them that strength. And so if you don't take care, when they reach the point of that emboldenment, we're all completely gone.
Prof, I mean,
so,
yes, mining necessarily is not a bad thing. So let's just assume, let's just assume for a minute that these people want to mine. Can't we help them to mine responsibly so they do not destroy the environment, they do not destroy water bodies? Is it a difficult thing to do? Can't we help them to mine responsibly?
You see, Salom, there are 2 things here that we tend to mix them. If they themselves know that what they are doing is not right, nobody is saying that they shouldn't mine. But if they have been mining responsibly, do you think we'll be talking here? We wouldn't talk. And it's not that they don't know that what they are doing is not right. They do know. But it is nothing but greed. Because first, why do Ghana was called Gold Coast? Ghana was called Gold Coast because we have gold. And it has been there since time immemorial. For me, the problem of Galamsey, if you really want to solve it, I think we know what to do to solve. We know who are involved in the Galamsey. We know what we must do. What we don't know is we don't want to do. For me, that's what. So 9 months, like I commented, they've been doing very well. So granted, they have been resourced properly, having what they need, they want to do. Do you think they will suffer what they suffered recently? Now, these are the parameters that are involved in the Galamsey. There are 3 plus additional one I'll add later. We have the excavators, we have the chamfans, and we have the mercury, which is the chemical. We can stop Galamsey by what I call deprivation. Deprivation. You deprive the resources with which they rely on. If the Galamsey, the excavators had been controlled, to me, they don't have excavator anymore. If we have controlled the chamfans, the manufacturing, the whatever is controlled. We have controlled the influx of the chemicals that they use. It means that these 3 parameters are under control. This one, we can control it. We can control the chief not to give out the concession. Fine. But when you have controlled these 3 parameters, nobody has access to it. Then you don't tell anybody not to mine. Let them continue to do their mining. But this time, they are going to mine with picks and shovels. So when he gets to the forest with pickers and shovel, not any tree. When he dig a little bit, he'll be exhausted. So having gone there after 2-3 times, nobody will tell him that your return from that investment on the Galamsey using those accoutrements, it doesn't worth it. So nobody will do it. So use deprivation to stopping it.
So recently,
no, we have not done that.
Prof, recently the EPA banned and closed down some chamfan, fabrication warehouses where they manufacture those things and store them. Would that be one of the deprivation tools that you are mentioning or you are talking about?
Yes, because you see, if you focus on it to get that thing done holistically, so you speak, go to Hwidiem, just right now from Kumasi to Hwidiem, you see those guys are still down. Those we call them the low-hanging fruit. They are still there, selling them. If you go to Anyang Kwanta Obuasi, you go there, they are still there, selling them on the roadside. If you talk of excavators, how many excavators do we need as a country for, let's say, our construction work? How many are in existence? How many have been impounded? These metrics, do you know them? So even if you are fighting the excavators, you don't even know how many you are dealing with. So no matter, but if focus on it, and you've done this, what I'm talking about, so you will not necessarily have to stop anybody at all. That voice will be needless. The person himself will stop because he wouldn't get what he needs, and nobody will force him to go. But because the inputs keep coming, the excavators keep coming, the chemicals keep coming, the champagne, whatever, they keep manufacturing them. So no matter what kind of 9 months you set up, they will only be doing firefighting.
Very well.
It will never amount to anything significant.
Very well.
Imagine 8 months ago, we had this variable that I've mentioned under control. Don't you think we would have maybe seen about 60% or 50% clearance of the water bodies? They could have been seen 8 months. They could have been cleared. What else could have been cleared? If you remember, 2017-18, when the NADU came in there, they started this. In almost a year, didn't you see the water clearing? It did. So this deprivation principle, if you should go by it strictly, without doing political antics, blaming, doing this, whatever, because we know the people who are doing it. We don't want to betray them. But when we get to the cartel stage, nobody will be saved. Your money will not save you.
Very well.
Nothing will save you.
Great. Richard Kumado, a quick one. Awula mentioned a scenario that we don't want a situation where our country becomes like some South American countries where certain places, forests, etc., become no-go areas for the state. I mean, rebels and other people have taken over those places. I mean, given your background, do you also entertain such fear that if decisive action is not taken, Ghana may be pushed into areas where the state cannot venture?
Okay, so currently the risk assessment results we have is that even though inappropriate money or Galamsey and the related activities pose a threat to the state in terms of public safety and in terms of water bodies and people invading into the forest areas, there's no militia group out there that can stand the combined forces of the Ghana Armed Forces. And here, let me say that when we are talking about the Ghana Armed Forces, we are talking about all the security agencies with armed groups. There's no militia group out there operating in any forest in this country that can even stand the specialized forces within the Ghana Police Service, let alone the Ghana Army. So that point has to be made so clearly. To the extent that it's a major risk you face, you will want to mitigate against it before one day it gets out of hand. I've always maintained that if we take all the interests out and we leave the national security interest, we would have done far better than what we are seeing now. But then again, even if you look at the speed at which NAMOS is working and their determination in making sure that they cut the supply lines for the people in the appropriate mining space, distract the activities and curtail movement, the narratives and the politics and the way we drag it and the misinformation and disinformation, those are the actual threats. Those are the actual relatives that makes people wake up in the middle of the night and they think Ghana has broken or Ghana is breaking and they don't want to have anything to do with this country. By the narrations and by the things we say that we know that are not very true, it's rather adding more fuel to the issues we are facing. So for us as law enforcement officers who have been on this journey for many years, I can tell you that NAMOS is doing Yoma's job, just like Operation Vanguard was doing, and we call them back. When NAMOS was formed, I was one of the people who said, we did not want to have political interference in the work NAMOS is doing. My check so far shows that even though they operate under the Minister of Lands, which people have problem with it, I would have thought the police were augmenting it. But no matter what you do, for us as law enforcement officers, national sovereignty is our priority. Public safety and security assurances is our priority. Effective intelligence gathering to ensure that the state is stable and safe at all times is our priority. And I can tell you and emphasize it, that this is what my brothers in the front line have put themselves out there to do. And they are doing it so well. So we need their support instead of bashing and instead of miscommunicating and saying all manner of things that we know in our heart that the things we are saying are not true. Hello.
Great, but the issue is not that is the situation currently. We know the issue about resources, I mean natural resources. And in many of the areas where rebels thrive, they try to find or seize a natural resource base like minerals, gold mine, etc. And then they fund their activities with those. So touch with any of these terrorist groups in the sub-region, seize this, and they capture a place. You have people who mine, they sell their good, they get the money. That will be resource for them to continue funding their activities. That is the concern. And you're saying that you do not think we are there yet, or you do not think that will ever happen in our case?
No, let me say it again. I said there's no militia group out there operating in any area in the form of Galamsey that can stand the combined forces of our Ghana Armed Forces. And when I say Ghana Armed Forces, I mean all the security agencies with armed groups. There's no group out there manning our forests and our water bodies that can stand the combined forces of the specialized forces within the Ghana Police Service, not even bringing the military in there. So that point will have to be made. And I have also said that for the past 5 years, when we were on our feet saying that let's curtail the movement of these guys because inappropriate money is becoming a major security risk. Nobody took it seriously. They were rather insulting it. To the extent that they have embodied and have occupied a large space, you are managing it in a manner that you identify, you assess, and you curtail. And that is the strategy that now most guys are using. You identify, you assess, and you curtail. And by what they are doing, they have even done more than what we expected them to do. When you give the work to NIMOS, has everybody asked themselves what is the activities of NIMOS and what their key performance indicators are going to be? There are other agencies within the fight against inappropriate money or Galamsey. When it comes to cleaning the water bodies, that is the work for the EPA and some other agencies. When it comes to reclaiming the land and planting the trees back in the forest, that is Forestry Commission, that is the Lands Commission, and that is the Ministry of Environment. When it comes to giving licenses and supervising it and making sure that we are buying gold at appropriate places, that is the work for Mineral Commission, and that's the work for Gold Board. So there's a shared responsibility. And if we put our heads together and work at it, we should be able to do things properly in this country that will reclaim our water bodies and bring them to the state as it is. I'm not disputing the fact that if we sleep and we fold our arms, then one day, almost everywhere in Ghana, you are going to have Galamsey, just like we are confidently saying that there are 2 regions in this country where there's no inappropriate money and there's no Galamsey. And there are 2 other ones where you have limited NAMA that can be curtailed so easily. So that is the point I'm making. And I'm saying that the major threat we are facing is the miscommunication and the misinformation and inappropriate communication around this whole thing that is making it look like they are terrorists and Turag and Hajjad and Al-Qaeda and co-descending on us in a manner. So let me give you one example. Let's say we get up in the morning and take any place in Central region or Western region or Ashanti region or Eastern region where inappropriate money takes place. Are we saying or are we concluding today that some group of people take our people hostage and you think the guys, the airborne from Tamale will not descend, and you think the Air Force will not come from Takrady, or you think the Commando unit in Burma camp will not move, and the guys from Ho will not come? No, we are working at this thing considering the nature it is we have come so far that you are managing it and you are working at it. So you will need everybody involved, knowing very well that one day it may grow to become a lion, but today it's not there yet. So let's work at it and let's communicate properly at it. For me, as a security consultant, the little I have done and what I can do are the things I tell them. And so far, when the issue happened at the Hanfo region and the EPA boss was also attacked, right from the days when Hanabisu was attacked, some of the things I was expecting to say, I have seen it. Are we doing it well? Yes. Can we do more? Yes. Should we be allowed to do more? Yes. Should we increase the speed? Yes. And so that is what I want to say to this matter.
All right, very well. Thanks so much, Richard. A few messages that have come through. Haruna Sani from WA says, it's evident that the NDC parliamentarians ran their campaigns on protecting those involved in Galamsey. That is why the Galamseyers are emboldened to the extent of fighting state security when NDC took power. This one's from Kojo Impek. He says, good morning, Salom. Richard and Hagwa should know that bails are granted by the judges depending on the enormity of the charges preferred against them. Good morning. This is Abdul Ganiu Mankarigu from Savannah region. These people are aware of the attack. They just want the Galamsey operators to kill the journalists so that they can later exploit it for political gain. I don't trust the NDC. We will keep putting pressure on them to fulfill their promise to Ghanaians. Please keep fighting against it, even if they are targeting your people. That's why Ghanaians are telling Mahama to fulfill his promises when you said you would declare state of emergency. This one says, good morning, Salom. The MP's behavior is, if true, must be condemned in no uncertain terms. Also, I believe that to be able to win the Galamsey fight, community participation is very crucial. And I have the strong belief that President Mahama will not disappoint Ghanaians. Chris Akumi says, bail granting bail conditions are the preserve of judges and not governments. Any criticism of the laxity or severity of bail conditions must be levied on judges instead. They have a discretion to exercise as such. All persons involved in subverting solutions to Galamsey must not be spared, but investigated and punished within the law. Also, all matters of Galamsey must be speedily investigated. That's from senior lawyer Chris Akume. A few other messages that have come through. This one says, good morning. Listening to Richard Ayagba makes me wonder if our country will ever progress in any way or form. His thoughts and objectivity are always at perils. That is from Dread. All right, so yes, let me come back to my studio guest. I mean, I start off with him. How much work should we expect the communities to do? Communities and the chiefs. We have areas where the chiefs are against Galamsey, and it does appear that those areas have not suffered so much the destruction of Galamsey because the chiefs are against it. The chiefs are able to rally the community members to fight the Galamseyers, and so even if it's happening, it's minimal. There are some areas everybody appears together. We have seen stakeholder engagements. A big one happened at the conference center. A big one happened in Ashanti region where the Ashantini made those comments about asking him to stick to the script and all of that. So engagements have happened. What should we be doing to have the communities around the table so they own the fight?
It begins from this studio. And some of your testers who are politically colored and are sending messages to advance their cause. And I think I started my conversation by saying that I'm not speaking as a political person, and I will not. And if at any point this fight progresses and anybody from our side, like the NDC did, okay, in 2020 and 2024, moving about in the Galamsey communities, canvassing that, oh, if MPP comes, we'll let you Galamsey, I will oppose that. I'm telling you that I, as a person, I am not going to favor any approach by my own political party to seek to get any political advantage out of a determined fight to end Galamsey, because the impact is collective. The NDC did that. We won't do that. So in my mind, I am clear that this fight ought to be approached, okay, as a bipartisan effort, apolitical, driven to try and end this because the impact is collective. But I want to make a point, and I think that was one of your testers also made that point, that yes, bail conditions given by judges or investigative authorities. No, just a small point, you understand, given by investigative authorities or imposed by them or by judges and all that. In the case of the NDC people, one of the conditions considered is their membership and where they belong. So I'm just saying that is one of the factors. When Hamza is listing all of that, they look at where you are coming from and give you. But the point is that if you look everything on the MPP side, okay, the consideration is hefty. When it comes to the NDC side, it's minimal. And even including where there is no action taken at all, in the case of Oscar Labi, to date, nothing is done.
But we understand investigations is ongoing. Till
what time? No, and then you see, and you made a very good point. When the Attorney General comes to brief the country and malign people and conclude that people have committed crime, where his press conferences and the kinds of facts he says he's putting out becomes people's gospel, held against people that they have committed those crimes expressly, he forgets to bring us the updates on our brother Yabin, on Abanga, on Oscar Labi, and the rest of them. He forgets to bring that one. Conveniently, he doesn't bring that one. But he focuses on other ones.
He focuses on giving oral cases. Oral.
But today, between you and I, what threatens our lives even more than oral? Because oral, the effect of it, if you want to deal with it, is contained. Correct? You don't. The people you think that they caught in the oral web, it's concluded. They are there. But what is evolving is Galamsey. So but that one, you are not giving us update. And the point I want to make to you, Selom, is that the failure to deter has contributed to the crisis festering and it's leaving our waters poisoned, and it's leaving our forests devastated, and our food sources also poisoned. That, for me, is the issue. Now, going forward to deal with this matter, I have a small concern, and I think I've mentioned that here, relative to President Mahama's acquiescence to the possible purchase of Galamsey gold, making the point that, you know, after all, it's our land and river that is being devastated.
But the gold board has since clarified.
I'm not saying it's gold board is buying, but that statement itself being out there, okay, gives comfort, create a certain perception that there is an indulgence of that enterprise. You need a clear signal. Richard is talking, Kumado is talking about miscommunication and all of that. Is that miscommunication? Because people are taking it as an indulgent regime for Galamsey. I think that the president had to come again, take that conversation, clarify at his level for all of us to know that there cannot be any tolerance of it. We are fighting it. Its byproduct or its product will not be countenanced. And so therefore, you designate every gold that is extracted and is out there in the name of Galamsey. You stigmatize that. Okay, you make it a gold, just like in the Congos, they have the red diamonds. You have a toxic gold coming out of Ghana. Now, with the benefit of Gold Board, we have streamlining the dealership rights of gold and the export and all of that, controlling that space, resource to be able to do that even more effectively. Okay, I understand they're making some very good success in terms of reducing smuggling and all of that. Now, when you have created that environment that almost, for lack of a better word, stifle any other movement of gold except through the Gold Board channels, then you would succeed in fighting or reducing incentive. Part of what Professor Bavari is talking about, the
deprivation.
The deprivation mechanism, so that you can go and do all you want, but there's not going to be any market for you to go and sell that gold. So what is it to have a gold that you can't sell? So you take away that conduit for them. If indeed there is no other stream that they are piping their gold through in our country. So we need to be able to look at that. So the president must come very clear on that score to say that this is not something we'll condone, and the fight includes preventing it, okay, in terms of active engagement in seeking the gold, and also the outlet through which they get their money. That also must be blocked, effectively must be blocked. Now, the other point, unless you want us to move to a different subject.
No, just
the other point, which you indicated, which is, for me, where we ought to be, is how we can expand the scope of the fight. Yes, we talk, government has ultimate responsibility. When the NDC was in opposition, they made it that it is a government responsibility. But we think that it is all of us our responsibility. In fact, when we're in government, remember in 2021, there was a national dialogue on Galamsey. I remember vividly when the Honorable Idrissa Husseini was there, and he made some very poignant points in leading us to be able to deal with that. We need to then get into that space again. Engage all stakeholders, and even bringing the NCC to undertake some public education effort to orient the citizens. Okay, and I am quite willing for us to get to a point where education, public education, is aimed at stigmatizing the name Galamsey, yes, illegal mining. So therefore, you wouldn't want to be associated with that tag as a Galamseyer. You won't want to be. When all of us come to that point where we think that this is an odd thing to be, is an antisocial behavior or tag to carry, I think it will go a long way to try and bring down the fight.
Very well.
But then we'll go down, the chiefs must be materially involved in this matter, the communities themselves must be materially involved, and the youth must be engaged. And in doing so, the MPP brought about the Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program. I don't know the state of that now, but we need to invest in that to provide a conduit for the young people who are engaged in that. They are not the face of Galamsey. The face of Galamsey, actually, we haven't seen, are the ones sponsoring and funding it.
So
the young people,
sorry? You agree with President Mahaman's philosophy?
No, I'm coming. But you see, I would not agree necessarily in terms of making the economic rationalization for it, and so therefore don't do anything. Okay? You make that argument, you provide the conduit. So the president can make that case, but then fund that alternative outlet to ensure that when you are telling people don't go to the Galamsey pit, there's a place that you are leading them to go to that makes it reasonable for them not to return.
There's the Jumara program, there are a few other things, but the concern is that these guys have seen money, how to make quick money. So they don't have the patience to learn a trade for 3 years, a vocation 3 years, 2 years, before they begin making money gradually. They've seen money, 3,000 a week, 5,000 a week. And you can't shut that and ask them to go and learn a trade.
But you know that alternative,
that's the concern.
Yes, that alternative program had built in it revenue right from the start. So the aspect of it that deals with reclamation, okay, and reforestation was right on the money. You're getting paid and you're doing that. And aligned with that is the training opportunities that comes with it. So it must be all-inclusive strategy. So we are deterring, we're punishing, okay, deterring, and once we do that and you are brought in, then you are given an outlet where you can engage in a legal means of livelihood.
Very well. How do we fortify the government's efforts to win this? Are we winning it at all? What must we be doing as a final thought?
Salam, I think that we are, but even before I respond directly to that question, permit me to correct an impression that Prof, with the greatest of respect, sought to create, that we seem to have changed rules as far as the two major political parties is concerned. I think that I have not said anything around this table that the NDC never said during the elections. We were quite clear that the erstwhile regime was quite complicit in the fight against illegal mining. Indeed, there were examples of known operatives of the government, including party functionaries, where they were engaged or they were neck deep in the activities of illegal mining. So the government was overwhelmed. Quite apart from that, His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo then was simply engaged in the act of clearing many of these issues to an extent that even their own minister responsible for environment had cause to lament about how certain leading members of the New Patriotic Party, and in most cases the president's own relatives, called intervening on behalf of illegal miners. That was not hidden. And so we had reached a stage in time that the Ghanaian people had lost absolute confidence in the commitment of the then administration to fight the canker. And that was what crystallized the calls for a declaration of a state of emergency. And that context is critical. Today, that is not the issue before us.
But the claim is that the issue is worse now.
No, that is not accurate. That is not.
The stability levels have worsened.
Absolutely is not true. Look, when the president met the civil society organizations, many of you were there. The data that was made public indicated that in some cases the stability levels have improved.
Yeah, but we had never crossed stability levels of 50 or 80,000.
We had.
At the time.
We had.
The biggest we saw was 14,000.
No, it's not accurate.
In the
based on the report that was given, it is not accurate. They indicated that, look, many of them, in many cases, there was an improvement. And so it is not right to say that there is no improvement under this government.
If there's improvement in River A, in River B, it's worse. Then
yes, we did not deny the fact that in some cases the situation was bad. But we simply could not also turn our attention away from the fact that in some instances, clearly successes were choked. And this government did not say that we're going to clean our water bodies in a matter of 9 months. We had a holistic plan intended to confront the canker. And we've never hidden away from that responsibility. We have a 4-year mandate. I think that needs to be respected. But you see, Selom, another important factor, and so, Prof, just for the records, there's that difference. We are consistent in terms of what we said we would do in a position and what we are doing today, because the context is critical. And at least he knows better when it comes to essence of context when you are making many of these analyses. But you see, Selom, there's also another important fact that we are not considering, and that has to do with the deception my brother seeks to peddle this morning about the fact that he's not doing politics, but yet when he opens his mouth, all what he does is the politics of the situation. We are not in any way perturbed by the politicization of the issue. Indeed, as a government that is listening and that is committed to the fight, we believe that responsible politicking would be positive prompters when it comes to the strategies that we have deployed in the sector. And so we are not worried. You can do your politics, but do not attempt to deceive the Ghanaian people that what you are doing this morning is not politics. And it is inaccurate to also quote the president wrongly. And permit me, Selom, you see, the president was asked a question about the fate of many of the golds that was seized, and in some cases, those that came from illegal mining and seized. And he made the point that, look, we are fighting the canker. We have not succeeded yet. And so many of those that we have seized, and amongst other things, we cannot simply throw our hands in despair and decide not to make good use of that gold and the resources that would come from it because it is coming from illegal mining. That we needed to understand that as part of the fight, seizure of these mineral resources was a component part of the fight. That was the context, and it's important for you to appreciate that. And you see, you can do the maneuvering you want around the subject, but that was the basis of that call, of that statement. And that was where he made reference to the fact that, oh, yes, it is true that the environment was distracted in recovering many of these mineral resources. But the reality is that the preoccupation should now be on reclamation. And you raise an important matter, and that has to do with the role of the communities and the fact that it is becoming extremely difficult. But again, kudos to the government. We are not yet out of the woods, but the steps are encouraging. Selom, today the government has launched what we call the Galamsey program, because we appreciate that many of our citizens out there who are engaged in it, like you indicated, are unwilling to go and learn other trades because of the financial benefits they are likely to get or they are getting from that sector. So what this government is saying is that where we are faced with such difficulties, we should be in a position to regulate the trade. And that is why we have proposed the formation of cooperatives amongst these guys that will be registered under the district assemblies that they operate. And certain taxes would be assigned to them to be paid to the district assembly so that at least the district assembly can help them in the process of reclamation and filling many of these holes.
Very well.
And so it is progressive in nature, and that needs to be commended. But when it comes to education, the stakeholder engagements are still ongoing. The minister responsible for lands and natural resources is still engaged in that stakeholder engagement. It is a holistic process. And also I have made references to the fact that, look, we need to find a way of controlling the equipment that they use. This government is already doing that. That is why we have launched what we call a licensing regime for many of the excavators that are coming into the country. Indeed, as part of the policy measures now, for you to even introduce, import an excavator into the country, you actually need a permit. And so these are all intended to minimize the dangerous effects of illegal mining. And lastly, on the press conferences of the Attorney General, you see, my brother made the point that, when the Attorney General held press conferences and gave an update on many of the investigations that they had conducted, then that is the problem of the New Patriotic Party. I remember when we were in opposition, they accused us that we didn't like reading. But clearly, on a daily basis, they fall over themselves into communicate to the Ghanaian people that there are those who are not interested in the art of reading. Selom, the press conferences the Attorney General held had to do with concluded investigations where dockets were raised and he was preparing to go to court. You simply do not expect an Attorney General to hold press conferences on an ongoing investigation in the case of the illegal mining, especially so when it doesn't fall as part of the mandate when it comes to oral and the terms of references that they were given. And so these are basic, Richard. And we need to appreciate that even in doing our politics, there must be a measure of how it is done, devoid of the usual partisanship.
Very well.
Let us allow the state to continue this fight. If the MPP is willing and ready to cooperate and support the government in that regard, we have no problem. As for all, they are citizens of Ghana. But we will not allow the MPP to use their politics, especially when it comes to Galamsey. Because everybody knows the role they played in the Galamsey menace when they were in power in the last 8 years. And I'm disappointed.
Concluding thoughts from our...
Just a quick point.
Then
I'll come in.
I will ask about your concluding thoughts on this. What should be the way forward on this in your view? Okay, Prof, your concluding thoughts on this. What should be the way forward in 1 minute?
Yeah. Thank you very much. But please give me a few seconds to respond to something that Richard said. I mean, Kumaji said that there's no militia in our forest and what have you, and that Ghana forces up to the tax and blah blah. I'm not able to add up. Didn't we have Fulanis tormenting people and still had the Ghana police or whatever unable to flag them out? So that argument to say that we don't have any militias in our forest and therefore we shouldn't discuss that.
They are not militia people. They are just a tribe who herd goats and cow in some cases. They are not a militia group, are they?
Not by name, but I'm only just looking at the impact and the problem they create for the people there, and they do nothing or were ineffective. Was my point. That if we don't nab the situation we face with the Galamseyers, the cartel issue, it will grow because this terrorist group will see a fertile ground. A fertile ground will be at these Galamsey areas that they will go hide and then start to cause havoc. That was my point. Like, if we don't do it, it will not stop the people from coming. So we should not wait for them to come before we will start to fight them out. That, let's put it on record.
Very well.
But my want to take is that what is before us is a serious war, and that for a war, we must be resolute. We have the power in our hand. We are asking for a temporary ban, maybe let's call it cool off, some 3 weeks or 1 month to reassess the situation. And then everybody would then be in the known where we are. Then always the leadership try to shield and preventing that action. It then creates an environment that there's something being hidden. So I will plead that let's take a step back, give what, let's call it a ban or whichever, if you don't want to use the name emergency, state of emergency, let's call, so that at least we know that within that period, anybody found around those communities or those areas, what are you doing? And so we can really assess the carnage and of course the impact it's having on us, because almost every food we have here, children are being born with deformity and all sorts of things. It's going to affect everybody. So that's my concluding remark.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. There's a few messages before we go. This one says, before I'll be convinced that this government is committed in fighting Galamsey, I would have liked to see more people going through prosecution like Chairman Wontumi, because I don't want to believe that Wontumi was the only kingpin who has devastated our forests and water bodies to this extent. This is Joe Baba in Bolga. Just gone by was a discussion on the Hwidiem attack and the Obuasi attack on Galamsey and Ghana's fight to it, what partisan politics is doing to it, what we can do to improve the fight, etc. Now let's move to the SML GRA contract matters. And now SML is beginning to fight back. All along it's been the Office of the Special Prosecutor speaking to the press and telling the press what he's been doing, etc., conducting raids in the SML offices, etc. Now, the SML itself, through its lawyer, they have also spoken, and they have denied any link to Ken Ofori-Atta, because the thing was that one of the matters the OSP is looking at in respect to Ofori-Atta is the SML contract. They have also defended the owner's independence and have written to the president telling him their side of the story and asking the president to reconsider his decision to terminate the contract. They also threw in a veiled threat that terminating the contract could lead to a judgment debt because they feel that the contract was clean, good, and in accord with law. And there's nothing wrong with the contract that should occasion a termination. So that is their position, and that is where we are now. And the gentleman, our colleague, Manasseh Azuri-Awuni, who has been on the matter, joins us on the line to provide some context, and then we can take a discussion up from there. Hello, Manasseh. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Selom, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure as always. Now, of course, we've been following the SML matter, thanks to your work with the Fourth Estate also and all that you do. Now, OSP is taking over the matter. People think the OSP should be a bit more, should be a bit more swift or swifter, should be a bit swifter with the matters than it is now. Nonetheless, said they've conducted a raid in the offices and they are building some more case against SML. SML is now spoken and said that they are clean and that there's no connection between the company and Ofori-Atta asserting independence of their boss or their founder, etc., etc. I want you to do two things for me. Give me a quick background into the whole investigation and tell me what you make of the OSP's actions and the recent response from the SML.
Thank you very much, Selom. SML has always been speaking and churning falsehood, only that this time that falsehood is coming from a lawyer instead of their communication people and their media or pro-SML media folks. The story is quite simple. In February 2017, we had a new government takeover a month earlier, and a company named Strategic Mobilization Enhancement Limited, SML. And then a few months, 3-4 months later, this company, without ever doing any work anywhere, was shortlisted for a single source procurement contract with the GRA. And that was when the Public Procurement Authority raised red flags. There are procedures and then qualifications for this single source procurement. It had to be an emergency situation, or that no any other company could provide this service, or that the SML had proprietary rights over this service, which we know the company had never done anywhere and could not have had any proprietary rights. What it did was just to buy meters and install them and some other services. So that is when how it started. And on 3 different occasions, SML, the Public Procurement Authority rejected GRA's application to use single source. 3 occasions, they wrote first, the PPA said no, this company has no experience, it has no track record of ever doing this work, so we cannot give you the approval. They wrote a second letter, PPA said no, the GRA wrote a third letter, PPA said no, and then the GRA said to hell with PPA. It proceeded to award a number of contracts. The first contracts were at a port. They called them external price verification and transaction audit contracts at the ports. These are things that the GRA's customs division was already doing. If you read President Akufo-Addo's white paper after the KPMG report, that white paper said those services were already built into GRA's ICOMs. So they were redundant. That was why the GRA proceeded to discontinue those contracts in 2024. But not just the discontinuation, we have paid over 500 million Ghana cedis for that component of the contract. Now, if you go to every depot where these big tankers we see in town load petroleum product, there are GRA officials there every single day. In fact, for anybody to be able to load fuel or petroleum product from any of the big depot tanks at the depots we see, then the keys to those depots are kept by the GRA officers, customs officers. If they do not open, nobody can load, which means that to be able to steal a product, then GRA people have to be there. Also, the depot officers have their meters. They're able to take stock of the petroleum product because some people come to store the product there. So if it gets missing, they will be in trouble. So it is in their interest to be able to account for the product. Then when the tankers come loading, different companies come to load, there are meters that are calibrated by the Ghana Standards Authority every 6 months. Then in the past, some people would leave these products and go and sell. Some politically aligned OMCs, oil marketing companies, would leave these products, go and sell, and not bring back the taxes. So the GRA and NPA introduced a system called Enterprise Relational Database Management System, that if you want to load petroleum products anywhere in this country, you go through that system to load. If you owe taxes, you'll be logged out. You can't even place an order. This solved that problem of under declaration and people not bringing back taxes and all, because the GRA has to clear you on that platform, the NPA has to clear you, and the BDCs or those that own those petroleum products and even the depots have to clear you before you can load. Besides that, the final permission to load is authorized by GRA people. When you go through all this system, it is printed and given to you to get to the loading gantry and load, where there are meters there. These meters record the volumes lifted. It is transmitted through this ERDMS, transmitted into the customs system, which they call ICOMS. So when we spoke to the customs people, they said that once you are able to account for your volume, then you can account for your taxes. Then they employed the services of two companies, Nationwide Technologies Limited and Rock Africa, which were also undertaking fuel marking and then the tracking of these trucks to avoid or curb diversion and dilution. All of these were put in place and the benefits were obvious. Then a company called SML, which had changed its name from SML to SML, was brought into the field to also do the measuring of the volumes. The interesting thing is that SML's measurements of those petroleum volumes have never, not even a single month, been used by the GRA to collect taxes. When we investigated, we found out that the meters SML brought they use ultrasound technology. They are installed outside the pipeline, so they don't take as accurate readings as the existing ones. So GRA has never used them for tax purposes. Now they claim they use them for revenue assurance. Like assurance is just like auditing, to monitor, to ensure that something isn't going wayward. But if you are bringing meters to police the existing ones, then common sense should dictate to whoever is employing them to bring superior technology to police what is already there. You don't bring less efficient meters. And then if you read the KPMG report, they said in the mix, SML recorded the least readings within the period KPMG audited. We found out, and then we confronted SML, which had put on its website that it was checking the under declaration or under reporting. It was checking diversion and dilution. When we went to them with this evidence, the company admitted it lied and deleted that portion of the claim from its website. Second, the company made claims that they had helped save Ghana 3 billion cedis within the period.
Yeah.
This was also false, even though they got a lot of the media, including Daily Graphic, to put it on the front page. When we confronted them, they could not stand by these claims. They said it was the media that got them wrong. And I said, well, as I speak to you this morning, it is on your website. So granted that the media got you wrong, why do you put an erroneous impression or publication about you on your website? And that is why you see on that in that documentary, Christian Tetesoti saying that, well, we do not know about them. It is important to note that to provide revenue assurance and auditing services, you need to be licensed by the Chartered Institute of Accountants Ghana. And the Act says that failure to obtain this license and practice, you could be jailed or fined or suffer both punishments. SML does not have that license to do the work it is doing. So it is operating illegally if you take aside all the other breaches. And then finally, whilst all of these were going on, we have a man called Ken Ofori-Atta who wrote a letter stating that he had determined that SML's services should be expanded to the petroleum production sector and also the mining sector. And the petroleum production contract said that every barrel of oil Ghana produced, SML should be entitled to $0.75 per barrel. $0.75 per barrel. This means that at the time Ghana was producing between 160,000 and 170,000, we did our calculation using the lower value, 160,000 barrels per day. SML, every single day that we produced oil, if that contract had gone through without our investigation, SML would have been making 120,000 cedis. Sorry, dollars. 120,000 US dollars every single day we produced oil. This company had no hand in the production. This company did not put the oil in the ground, but through a contract instigated by Ken Ofori-Atta, they were to have $120,000 every single day we produced oil. As if that was not enough, he said we should go to the mining sector so that SML, through its services, should be entitled to 0.75% of total production. So this year that we are getting billions and billions of revenue from gold alone, not to talk of the other minerals that we also mine in this country, this company would have been making so much just by perhaps putting some useless meters somewhere. And at the end of the day, the company would have been taking credit for this incremental growth we are seeing in the mining sector. So, Selom, if you ask me, this is a company that was brought in. You heard your lawyer saying, well, the SML has always insisted that they are paid based on output and their payment is not fixed. This is a lie the company has peddled from day one till now. The contracts are there. The lawyer or whoever speaks for SML, get them to read a portion of the contract that talks about fees. If you take the downstream petroleum sector contract, every liter of fuel that anybody buys or that even goes to the pumps, SML is entitled to 5 pesos per liter. And 5 pesos looks very small until you multiply it by the billions of liters we consume. The ports contracts too, they were entitled to specific percentages from the import that came. They didn't have to even do the importation. It turned out those services were redundant and SML could not challenge the findings of KPMG and the President Akufo-Addo's white paper. So if you ask me, this is a company that was brought in and modeled along the lines of that document we saw, Ejapade, like transferring public resources, public wealth in the mining sector, in the petroleum sector, upstream where we produce, the downstream where we import and consume, and the port. These are about the most assured and constant revenue streams of the country.
But
someone decided
we are
to
not
put
sure
this
about
contract
the
there.
we are not sure about the Japadia document though, because I mean we don't even know the source of that. So that's fine. But the issue is
I also have my doubts about that document, but the deal is like how
it's been portrayed in the document. Very well.
Yes,
I understand
have my own doubts about the credibility of that document.
I get that.
But this deal is modeled along those lines.
Great.
That is why I said that.
You say that the company's claim of saving the country some 3 billion is false. Did your work investigate how much the company might have saved the state at all, if indeed they did?
The company has never saved the state a pesewa. And if anybody doubts me, they should create a platform for me and the Ghana Revenue Authority, and then the SML, and demonstrate to me how the company saved the nation. If you look at the amount they were quoting, it was the incremental revenue over a period. So the GRA in 2019, let's say, was making 1.5 billion cedis from the downstream sector. And then 2023, GRA is making 2 billion. Then the conclusion is that the additional 500,000 came because SML was performing a service. We all know, since I started monitoring GRA and then their targets, yearly targets, there isn't a single year that GRA said, look, our target for 2025 is 100 billion cedis, and then our target for 2026 is 90 billion cedis. GRA's targets are always revised upwards. Why? Our economy keeps growing, more people do business, and if you look at the number of cars people had in 2024 and today in Ghana, obviously it increases because every day people clear cars, they use fuel. But even if you don't want to accept that common sense explanation for the growth, this is what the KPMG report said about downstream petroleum revenue trends in the sector. And it is surprising that KPMG will say this and turn around to suggest that SML contributed to this growth. This is what is said. Number one, SML had said that their intervention increased consumption, the number of liters, up to over 400 million liters per month. And they claimed that it wasn't up to 400 before they came. And this is what KPMG said. It says an average of 400 million liters. And whoever has that document is online, pages 157, 158, they should read what I'm putting across. An average of 400 million liters per month was already being recorded in Ghana in 2019 and the first quarter of 2020, as per our review of the MPA's data. KPMG came in June 2020. So even 2019, we're recording 400 million liters. So it wasn't SML that came and then we started getting up to 400 million liters. Two, MPA and GRA recorded a significant decrease in lifting volumes in April 2020. And this was because there was a shutdown as a result of COVID-19. And three, volumes recorded after April 2020 were consistently above 400 million liters. And then finally, it says that in the latter half of 2020, when SML commenced operations, data comparison from 3 sources indicates that MPA recorded higher annual volumes than both GRA and SML. Following MPA, GRA reported the next highest annual volumes, with SML recording the lowest annual volumes. This company that claims to be saying that, well, its recordings increased the volumes we started using for taxes. One, their measurement wasn't used. But KPMG is telling us that even in the mix, they recorded the least volumes. So any increment could not have been attributed to them. There's a difference between the volumes we lift and also the amount of revenue the state makes by way of taxes. And this is what KPMG again says about the revenue. It says that one, an incremental growth in revenue was observed from 2015 to 2023. Every year, as I said with other sectors, there was always an incremental revenue.
So in essence, we could not attribute that value to the work of SML. In essence, the attribution could not be made to SML that we recorded these increases because of their work, right?
No, great. SML came in 2020, the latter part of 2020, the second half of 2020.
Okay, so there was already, from the history.
went as far back as to 2015 and said,
yes, so the point I'm making is that every single year there was an increment. So if post the year SML came, there is still an increment. It is nothing new, more or less.
Never.
Great.
Besides, the KPMG said in this document that the number of taxes increased from 2 to 5, and then tax rates also went up. And then the final point it makes is that for any petroleum product lifted to be taxable, it must be declared in ICOMS. GRA's records of petroleum volumes lifted, taxable and non-taxable, are transmitted from MPA's ERDMS systems into ICOMS. So even if SML recorded higher figures, we are told they recorded the lowest figures, but even if they had recorded the highest figures, they could not still have gotten themselves into this equation. Why? Whatever that was used for tax came through MPA's system. And remember, I said at the beginning that these companies' recordings or measurements were not used because theirs were not as accurate as the ones that came through the MPA and ICOMS.
Very well.
So it beats one's imagination why maybe someone, including KPMG, would say this and again go to conclude that SML services may have led to this increment. And this is shameful because when KPMG was appointed by Hwidiem to audit these transactions, some civil society groups raised questions that KPMG was providing services and being paid by the GRA. So there was some conflict of a sort. Now we know that a senior partner at KPMG who was there and perhaps may have even helped supervise this report is now the GRA's Commissioner General. And it's surprising that we are still seeing letters from GRA saying this. And let me just add finally that the Commissioner of Customs at former Commissioner of Customs at the GRA now works for SML.
That's Christian.
The former head of legal. Yes. No, he's Philip.
Okay.
Yes. Christian Soti was the technical advisor to the Commissioner General
of GRA. Yeah.
Of GRA at the time this contract was being signed. So it is presupposed that per his duties, he may have even had a say in advising the Commissioner General of GRA. He too is now the Managing Director of SML. Then we have the Commissioner of Customs, a former Commissioner of Customs, Isaac Krensel, who is now a General Manager at SML. So it is as if at the time there was this claim that GRA couldn't do this service, so let's give it to a private company. And now the managers of GRA, after going on retirement, suddenly developed the skills to do that same service. So they have come here on the other side to manage SML staff to perform the same service to GRA,
Very well,
where they left and could not have done this. So
very well.
It is such a murky transaction, and if anybody says no laws were breached, then maybe that person doesn't know these facts, or the person knows these facts but decides to go out and peddle falsehood.
Very well. Thanks, Manasseh. Hang in there for us. Richard, I can't come to you on this. Very interesting narration of events from Manasseh's own investigation. But that is his investigation. And Office of the Special Prosecutor is looking at this as one of the matters involving Colonel Furiata. But listening to Manasseh, we've listened to him many times and read the reports, it does seem that this was just put together for a certain purpose. And we've not seen much. In fact, the KPMG report actually says that the claim that the increase in volume and revenue, it gets complicated and that it cannot be attributed to the work of SML. The attribution gets complicated. So the question is, what really did SML do to warrant the payments in excess of, I mean, close to 720 million cedis in revenue? I mean, what did they do? What is the problem? I mean, why did we create it, or why did we give them a contract when PPA, for example, was not happy about their track record and so advised against it? We went ahead and gave them a contract, and here we are. Why all of that?
Shalom. I've listened to Manasseh quite a bit from when the investigation came out. For us, this matter, we've talked about it ad nauseum, so we're not going to go back there and then relitigate the matter. But I'll ask Manasseh a question. But before that, though, let me just clear something. Hamza sought to create an impression
in the last discussion.
Yes. Oh. Relative to the Attorney General, where he says that, the Attorney General comes to talk about concluded investigations. That's exactly the problem. So that from February this year, when Oscar Labi was banished, and matters related to his activity and involvement in Galamsey in our win, 8 months, that investigation has not been concluded. It's almost 4 or 5 months now when their national organizer and vice chairman have been referred for investigation. He's telling us that that investigation has not concluded, which then lends credence to the whole perception that this government is not committed to the fight and that there is no political will to dealing with this matter. Related to that is Hamza, I think that he needs a big party thrown for him at the Jubilee House this afternoon for his gallant effort to try and color the president's response in a matter where everybody heard the president making admissions that we may be buying Galamsey gold by saying it's seizure. President didn't mean seizure, because seizure is state assets, the way they are seizing the water pumps in the area, giving it to assemblies to use for public good.
But if you seize it, you use it.
That's what I'm saying. So nobody would ask you a question about when you seize Galamsey gold, what do you do about it? That was not the question. The question was that all this Galamsey gold...
I'm digging up the question.
No problem, dig up the question. So the proper context was that somehow that the state was involved in buying Galamsey gold, which is something that we shouldn't encourage. So that's that about that.
So SML.
So let me ask Manasseh if he can help us, because he has a KPMG document before him.
Yeah.
But vaguely I recall, having read that document, that the KPMG made some reference to some detection of about 1.7 billion liters of petroleum product, okay, which they attributed to SML, which led to additional tax revenue of about 2.4 or so, 2.24 million, so billion Ghana cedis. Where is it in the KPMG report, if Manasseh can help us find that? Is it in the report or is not in the report?
Okay, so the KPMG, and that is what I said or described as shameful, because that 1.7 billion liters was the increment.
No, okay, so that's fine. But it's in the report,
No,
Manasseh.
no. Let me end.
No. I just want to know.
Let him clarify.
No, but he explained already, so I just wanted to make the point.
What you are saying is it may convey
a misleading,
an erroneous impression.
But first of all,
when
Manasseh,
we did our
did
investigation,
KPMG make that assertion? Hold on. Did KPMG make that assertion?
The assertion said that within the period,
2020, 2023.
2020 to 2023, this was the total increment, not what SML uncovered. In our documentary,
that's a fact.
SML,
but the point here is that
the company had, in a single instance, just one
but I said that's fine.
instance, got an OMC doing a wrongdoing, and they said, no, that is not our work.
Okay.
So this was the increment within the period.
Great.
And it was in our documentary before even KPMG was contracted by the president to do his
so that clarity is noted.
Thank you, Manasseh. I think that I admire Manasseh and I don't mean that in any patronizing way at all. Him and I think I stand with Hamza in commending Erastus for what they are doing. It's a brave enterprise they're engaged in, and they need all the support and protection. But I just want us to do so with utmost honesty in the matter. SML came in 2020. We are seeing incremental, detection. And the question is that before that, okay, what was happening, the rate at which this was going. And in the report, KPMG actually attributed that to SML. So, today, we can say crime is gone up, or we can try to blame the police if we see crime. But where there is no crime, we don't praise the police that they are working so that we haven't seen any crime. You get the point I'm trying to make. So SML came in, then we started recording this increments, and somehow we are told that, those things were happening before. The point is that why were they happening before if you said the systems that existed were so robust? So it means that even with SML, we're still losing stuff. Before SML, we're losing money. And so if you want to be honest, is it out of line to say that their introduction has contributed to that recovery? It won't be difficult to say that. It won't be difficult. So, but if you want to be disingenuous, then you totally write them off and say, they have not brought any addition to the performance of GRA. The question we must answer, and I am not seeking to defend SML in any way, shape, or form. They have capable people defending them. But I want us to also focus. What is the nature of the contract given to SML? SML was brought in to say that if you can help us recover, increase our revenue collection, you get a certain percentage. But if you don't, if we don't realize any increase, sorry, you get nothing. In the nature of the contract, you pre-finance all the undertaking that lead to you helping us recover. And if in the process of you making that investment to help us recover, if we don't recover anything at all, sir, it's a bad investment you've made. So in essence, the contract is a risk-reward contract. There is nothing comforting about that kind of contract. There's nothing. It's like me calling you or you calling me and say, look, Richard, make sure that our sales in terms of ad placement at ChannelOne goes up. And if it goes up, or it goes up, you get a percentage of the revenue. You don't give me transport, I go out there and I do my own shopping around to get people to come. And if you playing honest and you see that, yes, Richard came in and we didn't give, and somehow our revenue or ad placement is going up, and you give me something, that's something somebody is saying that is illegal? I don't get it. Look, I have not been able to talk about the matters relating to the procedural aspect of the contract, which is the procurement issue up and down. That I don't want to talk about that because that even the KPM reports, they say, well, there were challenges with that one. I don't want to go into that. But I'm talking about the substantial matter of revenue, which as a state, we are interested in. We've had conversation in this country about how much revenue we are getting, how much more we can do. That sector you are talking about, there's a lot of corruption there. So what you need is more policing, more eyes to be able to get the full benefit of what goes in there and not less. There are instances where OMCs would owe in taxes so much that the state will have to write them off. SML's insertion has impact on that because there was they have a mechanism that shuts your ability to load when you reach a certain tax threshold. So it's an addition that was going to help us solve a problem. So that aspect, I think that it is out for us to have a conversation. But Salom, are you aware of this letter issued by GRA? By their lawyer, indicating that SML has performed, has delivered on this contract.
Is it the same lawyer who has moved to SML?
No, it's not the same lawyer. I don't know any lawyer who has moved to SML. But if any lawyer has moved to SML and was given the indication whilst he is still at post at GRA, I take that. You understand? Whatever he does after issuing that letter is his business. But his issue, but that's not what I think. His name is Christian Saba or something like that. It's not
Christian Saba. Okay, that's the acting.
So he issued that letter. Okay, and it's on your portal. It's on My Joy.
No,
My Joy.
Saba is acting. If it's the one you're talking about.
Yes. The letter was issued under his hand.
Called by OSP to answer some questions.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm saying that the institution, not Manasseh, not me, not you, the institution at the center of this, who saw a need to bring a third party who they have not pre-financed, said that take a risk and help us recover. If we do, you get a benefit out of what the recovery is or the realization is. I don't think that in any world is a bad deal. In this country, if we can get a lot more setups such as that to help us rake in more revenue, which has been our Achilles heel in terms of funding development, I think we should go for it. There are matters related to procedural issues, I won't go into that, but let's not create the impression that the setup of SML was needless, because that's the perception that was created. And in that KPMG report, which Manasseh quotes elaborately, suggests that there are some gains, significant gains, attributable to their introduction. And I think that we should have the conversation from that standpoint. And also the comfort from GRA issuing that. Per their assessment, they have done the work they were asked to do, and that their work has been consequential in effect. I think that if we have concerns about irregularities and matters related to that, let's deal with it. But if we can find and objectively find that they have done something good, let's encourage it. Let's encourage other people to do it so that this state called Ghana can get more revenue. But the challenge, having said that, okay, so for me, on the matter of SML, go ahead and prosecute if you want to. But the challenge I have, again, is the media characterization of the whole thing as criminal. Already beforehand. Beforehand.
The media has said, well, the SML deal is criminal, or the OSP.
The people, yes, the OSP.
The OSP, but this is not media, it's the OSP. OSP speaks.
But he's talking to the media.
Yeah, the media reports.
I'm not saying you, the media, saying. I'm saying in the media.
You said that the media's characterization.
No, I'm saying the media characterization.
So what we are saying today,
hold on.
report it because that's what you have said.
I'm not faulting the media. My point was that the media characterization of the SML undertaking as criminal by the people who are investigating the process, who know so well that they cannot reach that conclusion by virtue of their own findings.
Yeah, but that's their suspicion, and that's what they take to court. That's their allegation they make.
But you haven't waited for me to finish. That's why the media is in it.
Okay.
Okay? Why is that in the media, not in the courtroom? See? So there's an undertaking. The Attorney General is engaged in that. Okay?
But there's an OSP.
So the Attorney General is engaged in that. The OSP is engaged in that. They are not going to court. They are dealing with matters in the media, which is creating a social perception against those people. Now you open your lines or do any study or any poll on your radio station and all that, and ask people to tell you their perception about SML. Conclusive that, oh, these people, they are thieves, that they have come to, defraud the state. People don't understand even the nature of the contract to be that they took the risk beforehand to generate something which brings them to the table to share, like I demonstrated with your own network. They took the risk, they funded all those undertakings that led to the 1.7 billion liters that was recovered. But because the individuals empowered to investigate these matters are making it a media trial as opposed to a courtroom trial, that is a problem. It's exceeding. You, the media, will have to report. Even in the courtroom,
but the OSP,
even in the courtroom, you report.
The OSP is under obligation to publish works it is doing periodically. So if the OSP tells you that I'm dealing with SML,
express obligation.
Yes, they have to publish cases they are dealing with periodically.
So you publish the case that we are dealing with SML. That's it.
Yes, where you have reached, what you have done, you let us know as part of transparency.
So everything they are doing is
no, they do that actually. It's part of the law. They do that. Yeah.
Well,
so that's what they are doing.
But I'm just saying that what they are doing.
Unless of course you want them to breach their own law.
No,
so that's what they are doing.
Maybe unless you quote the specific, because I read the act, I don't see where it says that they should call media press conference and tell them.
That's your own characterization.
No, but
they should publish.
Okay, so publish means the press conference and tell people.
Make the public aware.
I'm coming. Putting spin on the thing as though people have committed crime.
I don't know about
you have seen, of course, that's what we have seen.
2 minutes.
Oh, no, I'm coming. Just come, I'm coming. You have the rest of it. So the truth is that has created a problem. And so we think that this ought to stop so that we can focus on the issues. These things should be dealt with in court when it is conclusive. The punishment thereof or the guilt or the lack of it thereof will be brought to us as citizens to engage so that the OSP, if in the law, it should be repealed. I don't see the productive, I don't see the productive use of state time to come and tell us beforehand when you have not secured any conviction. And that's why in the case of Madame Cecilia Dapa, a lot of man hours was spent in media engagement, but we have not secured any conviction, no punishment, nothing, wasted time. And so if that's what is in the law, which I think I don't see expressly, if that's what is in the law, it ought to be repealed because it's not helpful. It's time wasting and creating the perception somebody is working when his work is not securing any punishment and therefore deterrence for the state to be able to advance justice in the country. So I think that would be my brief submission on
Very
the matter.
Well. The SML matter. Yes, just give me your view on it. And of course, their lawyer has spoken in response to everything the OSP has been saying. And they think that we are likely to incur judgment debt because they feel the contract is clean, the contract was regularly signed, and any attempt to terminate it as we are seeking to do will lead to dire consequences for the state in terms of judgment debt, which may be needless. What is the state going to do about it?
I think, first of all, it is important to commend Manasa Zuwewune and the Fourth Estate for such diligence and commitment to the fundamental principles of accountability. And to call on other media practitioners to begin to cast themselves in that mood, especially if we want to develop as a country in the management of our meager resources. But you see, Selom, in as much as I'm excited and inspired by the work of the likes of Manasseh, this morning I'm also saddened by the usual partisan slant of the Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party.
Oh, there was no politics.
Who undoubtedly appears to have elected to be the spokesperson of SML on this matter, as against the interest of the Republic that has been upheld in many of these audit reports that are commissioned. And I got the inclination that my brother did not even have the patience of reading both the contents of the KPMG report and that of the OSP's investigative report on the matter. Indeed. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been reaching the conclusions that he has reached this morning. You see, and it is not surprising, to say the least, because we are dealing with a political party that, upon assumption of office somewhere on the 7th of January 2017, from the word go, indicated their motive of wanting to deplete the meager resources of the Republic of Ghana. First of all, it started with the issues of moving PINA, associated with the oil and gas sector, and the amount of money we lost in that endeavor. Indeed, His Excellency, the President then, failed to act, even after all assurances in opposition that his government would be adverse to corrupt practices, as if that was not enough. Then came PDS, and the shady nature, the whole PDS arrangement was couched and manipulated simply to enrich cronies of the Akufo-Addo and NPP regime then. A number of them, a litany of corrupt cases that we had to deal with as a country under the stewardship of the NPP, of which my brother was and still continues to be the Director of Communications and defended many of these scandalous contractual arrangements when they were in power. And one would have thought that after being handed a humiliating defeat by the Ghanaian people to manifest their protest against such corrupt tendencies, this would have been an opportune moment for them to begin to recalibrate their steps and begin to make informed decisions as to how to reposition their party going forward, hopefully for the Ghanaian people to forgive them. But unfortunately, these people are still committed to defending the corrupt legacies of the Nana Addo Bawumia regime that brought us here in the first place. Selom, look at the murky nature of the events surrounding SML. You think that it is acceptable for state functionaries, in most cases, some of them were technical advisors, even to the head of Ghana Revenue Authority, Commissioner General, for such same people who offered advice for us to enter into such dubious contracts, to suddenly in no time turn and work for those companies without us raising legitimate concerns. If you look at the audit report...
It will depend on the contracts they have.
Please.
It will depend on the... But it may not be illegal.
It may not... Oh, my goodness.
It may not be illegal, but it may raise moral issues.
Yeah, but moral is not the law.
I get
No,
that.
when
we
it
need to
comes
understand the contract.
but it's
to
not a law.
corruption,
Yeah.
there are legal undertones of corruption and there are ethical undertones of corruption. And you cannot discount those ethical principles, especially when it comes to the fight against corruption. And as a politician, you ought to know this, Richard.
No, I'm just saying that there is none.
Please.
Yeah, they don't
I'm
breach any
demonstrating
ethical
that there is.
standard.
I'm
They do not
demonstrating
breach
that
any law. So
If
you
the
make it
law,
like
if the
that, then
institution,
are
when you were
misleading
speaking,
us.
I was quite...
No, it's okay. But it's friendly. I'm just trying to
please.
understand, to
You
let you
see,
know.
first of all, like Manasseh indicated, the Public Procurement Authority had cause on 3 different occasions to reject that contractual arrangement, because in its findings, it was convinced that there was something amiss as far as the whole engagement was concerned. That is a state-mandated institution intended to check incidents of corruption. Reach that conclusion on 3 different occasions.
Procurement.
Are you there? Yes,
The procurement.
Public Procurement Authority.
No, I just want to say what you mean. Yeah, go ahead.
You understand? So, but they rejected same. because there was something fishy. Again, based on the same KPMG report that you seek to use to defend SML, they themselves categorized the breaches into 3. And permit me, Salom, just to make reference to the report. Now, they had the first aspect of it that had to do with redundant services and stakeholder exclusion. And Manaso made that point beautifully. Because even at the time that Ken Ofori-Atta instigated the arrangement, we had about 2 companies, especially in the downstream petroleum sector, that were already engaged in revenue assurance. One was they called it the EDMS, Enterprise Relational Database Management System. That was specifically handled under the Ghana Revenue Authority, as far as the petroleum down sector was concerned. Then I think another company called Rock something was also given the responsibility of monitoring in terms of, what do you call it? The petroleum downstream sector again, when it comes to issues of diversion and stuff like that. So these activities were going. And NPA, according to the records, NPA was comfortable with it and they had no issues. There was significant improvement. So there was no need for us to subject the state to another, to another engagement like we did with SML.
Statement.
Can you please
go ahead? But you're making a relative statement.
Please.
There
was even KPMG.
Relative statement.
Even KPMG in their report came to that conclusion that it, at least because we had other institutions that were handling it, there was no need for SML to have been engaged in that manner. That is why it is characterized under their report. And again, as if that was not enough, KPMG also made references to procurement and procedural breaches of the law. And that's why I made references to the public procurement posture in the first instance. And they made references to the fact that considering the nature of the contract and the duration, it ought to have received parliamentary approval in line with the Public Financial Management Act, which was not done. These are serious breaches of law that you cannot simply sweep under the carpet. Can I ask you a question? No, please.
No, I mean, just for education.
There were so many questions.
Go ahead, no.
There were so many questions. You can keep
just to clarify.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, just to clarify.
You have a time to come. Yeah, so go ahead.
So the question I wanted to ask you is that here is a contract that is a risk reward. So there isn't any upfront payment from the state for where you need parliamentary approval for it. So I'm asking, do you really think that given the nature of the contract, parliamentary approval was necessary?
Yes, because we designed a Public Financial Management Act and require that if you are going to enter into such contracts that goes beyond 1 year, you need parliamentary approval. And so KPMG in the report indicated that the nature of that contract, even though there was a breach of procedural outlines, though we entered into such an agreement, and it was going to be for more than a year, we needed parliamentary approval in line with the PFMA.
I disagree, but carry on.
No, but that's the law.
Oh, that's the law.
But I'm not saying that given the specific nature of the contract.
Please.
Okay.
So once a contract exceeded 1 year and it's of financial nature, binding the government to it, then parliamentary approval was required.
Again, I heard him say that there's evidence that indeed SML actually contributed significantly in terms of revenue generation because of the work they were doing, according to the KPMG report.
No, according to GRA, because they said they delivered. I just read the report.
I read here again contents of the report from a KPMG, and this is what it says. It says that whether the GRA benefited from SML services, SML claimed its operation led to an increase in GRA's revenue from the downstream petroleum sector. However, KPMG noted that from May 1, 2020, and this is important, after SML began its audit to December 31, 2023, an additional 1.7 billion liters of petroleum products generated 2.5 billion in tax revenue. That is where you stopped. Now, it continues. KPMG highlighted that increased taxes from 2 in 2015 to 5 in 2023 and hikes in tax rates in 2016, 2019, and 2021 significantly contributed to revenue growth, complicating the attribution of this increase directly to SML's efforts.
There are two things there. 1.7 billion stands alone, that translates into the money. So we're talking about the recovery, the detection, 1.7 billion. That you can't confuse it because they were clear.
No, if you had read the report, they quantified the tax volumes.
I agree. I'm saying that it is the 1.7 billion that is in cash that you are referring to. And he's saying that increased taxes has led to the 2.45 billion. So
absolutely.
Talk about the volumes they have detected.
The latest, but that is the point they have made already in the report, that these were in initiatives that Rock Company, I've forgotten the forgive my recollection of the company name, was already doing. And even in the report, they indicated that it is difficult to attribute the increment in volumes to the work of SML.
But here they were clear in attributing the 1.7 billion. They said that within the period, undoubtedly there was an increment. Yes.
But you cannot attribute that to SML. And even when Manasseh Azuri and Co and the likes engaged SML themselves could not agree or state authoritatively that their work led to those increases.
Very well.
And so the KPMG report indicated, in line with what Manasseh Azuri and Co were saying, that you cannot simply attribute the so-called volumes to the work of SML. In any case, do you remember the Adam Ibrahim and Victor Solomon cases? And that of the likes of the Chachuchukada line of cases, willful causation of financial loss to the state, and the reasoning of the court in those instances. And so, Richard, it is not just about the fact that, there's evidence of some gains. When we are dealing with the law on willful causation of financial loss to the state, the conduct of Ken Oforiatta and certain officers at GRA would be measured against what the country could have gotten or what the country has lost as a result of that decision.
Very well.
We are dealing with a situation where the amount of money that was signaled to be paid to SML constituted about more than allocations made to 19 ministries. And you think that this is something that we should...
You see, that again is a problem, right?
So in your view, that's what the contract has said.
Yes.
So that should be what...
Yes.
And the fact that there's a signed contract...
There we go.
The fact that there's a signed contract does not mean that the state cannot investigate, first of all, the appropriateness of that contract and as to whether indeed it falls within the legal architecture of contractual arrangements. And also proceed to investigate whether indeed there are corruption allegations in those contracts.
Very well.
So
it's a good place to end. Let me go to
the claim they are making.
All right. So Manasseh, you have the final word on this.
Judgment.
So where do we go from here? And you have that in 1 minute. You have 1 minute or less to. So where do we go from here, Manasseh? Finally.
No, I think it is important to correct some falsehood that Mr. Hiangba has peddled on your show. Let me just quote something President Akufo-Addo's white paper on the KPMG report said.
Quickly.
On page 4 of that report, paper signed by Eugene Ahim. On the recommendations, the president said, point 2, the transaction audit and external price verification services may also be terminated. According to KPMG's findings, GRA obtained partial value or benefit from those services. This was also due to the lack of monitoring on the part of GRA to ensure that SML performed the services as stipulated in the contracts. Now, this is the most important part. KPMG's investigation found that GRA has introduced external verification tools as part of ICOMS, among its other functions. This renders the reliance on SML for external price verification redundant. Redundant is the word used by the President of this Republic, President Akufo-Addo, and under whose government this contract was entered to.
Very well.
But how much did we pay for that? 506 million cedis for something that is redundant. In 2024, when this report was made, we paid 166 million cedis. Now, he says it's disingenuous to say that SML did not contribute to the growth. First of all, that 1.7 billion liters he's talking about is the growth in the sector within years. It has nothing to do with SML. He keeps saying it was recovered. Take it from me, nothing was recovered. If anybody lies anywhere that any product was recovered, ask from whom, from which company was it recovered?
Very well.
SML said to us in a documentary that they are not doing that. Two, SML, GRA is an accomplice. So GRA's letter cannot in any way.
So very well. So Manasseh, I think we'll continue. We did it last week. I'm sure it will continue. Yeah. So your claim is that you did not peddle falsehood. No. He said you did.
He said I peddled falsehood. I didn't. I referred to the report.
Yes.
He picked and chose and did not refer to that point.
So the report said 1.7 billion liters, which translated into 2.75.
Attributable to SML.
Is that not attributable?
No, it's attributable.
Not recovered by SML.
It's attributable.
The attribution is
That's what I'm
complicated.
saying.
No.
All right. So anyway,
I also made the point about GRA,
we
which
have
has
run out
not.
of time. This is how we conclude today's edition on this note. Thanks so much for doing the listening and the viewing. My name is Selom Adonu. We'll catch you same time next week. Have a good afternoon.